Part 1. The chamber was enormous. It floated in space, orbiting a dying star that pulsed with strange purple light. Inside, creatures from 847 different worlds sat in rows that stretched up toward the crystalline ceiling. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had skin that humans could barely describe. They all stared down at one man standing alone on the floor below. Ambassador Jiho wore a simple black suit. His hands rested calmly at his sides. He did not look nervous. He did not look scared. Around him, the alien council members whispered and clicked and buzzed in their various languages. The translation devices built into the chamber walls turned their words into something Jiho could understand. At the front of the chamber sat Chancellor Vraxis. His body looked like a giant insect, with 6 legs and mandibles that clicked together when he spoke. His compound eyes reflected the purple light in 1,000 tiny mirrors. He raised one clawed hand and the chamber fell silent. "Human," Vraxis said, his voice echoing through the vast space. "Your species has broken the sacred treaty of 12 systems. You have built military stations in neutral zones. You have armed your vessels beyond permitted limits. You have refused our inspections." Jiho started to speak, but Vraxis clicked his mandibles sharply. The sound was like bones breaking. "We are not interested in your excuses. The Council has made its decision. You will remove all human presence from 15 star systems within 24 hours. You will submit to our oversight. You will surrender your weapons, or you will face the consequences." The chamber erupted in approval. Aliens of every shape and size stamped their feet, beat their wings, or made whatever sounds their species used to show agreement. The noise was deafening. Jiho stood perfectly still, waiting. When the noise died down, a massive reptilian creature stood up. His name was Thelvek, and he commanded the largest military force in the galaxy outside the Council's own fleet. His scales were deep red, and his teeth were as long as human fingers. "And if they refuse?" he growled. "What then?" Vraxis turned his huge eyes toward the human ambassador. "Then we will destroy them. Every ship, every station, every colony. The Council has 847 member species. The humans have one. This is not a negotiation. This is a mercy, more cheering, more stamping and clicking and buzzing." The aliens looked at Jiho like he was already dead. Some seemed almost sad about it. Others looked eager. Most just looked satisfied that the young, arrogant humans were finally going to learn their place. Jiho raised his hand. The gesture was so calm, so casual, that it took a moment for the chamber to notice. But when they did, silence fell again. Everyone wanted to hear what the human would say. Would he beg? Would he promise to obey? Would he try to bargain? Jiho looked up at Vraxis. Then he looked around at all the other aliens. And then slowly he smiled. It was not a big smile. It was not threatening. It was just a small, quiet smile that touched the corners of his mouth. "No," Jiho said simply. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. No one moved. No one spoke. They could not believe what they had just heard. Vraxis leaned forward. "What did you say?" "I said no," Jiho repeated, still smiling. "We respectfully decline your ultimatum. We will not withdraw from our research stations. We will not surrender our weapons. We will not submit to your oversight." Thelvek stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. "You cannot be serious. Do you understand what you are facing? 847 species will come for you." Jiho turned to look at the red reptile. His smile grew a little wider. "We understand perfectly, Commander. 847 species." "We counted. The answer is still no." Vraxis made a sound like glass breaking. "You are insane. Your species will be extinct within a month." "Perhaps," Jiho said. The smile never left his face. "But the answer is no." In the back of the chamber, some of the smaller species began to whisper nervously. Why was the human smiling? Did he know something they did not? Or was he simply too stupid to understand the danger? Jiho touched a device on his wrist. "If there is nothing else, Chancellor, I will return to my ship. You have given us 24 hours. We will use that time to prepare and prepare." Vraxis clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "Prepare for what? Your destruction?" Jiho's smile finally faded, but his eyes remained calm. "No, Chancellor. We are preparing for war. Good day." He turned and walked toward the exit. Every eye in the chamber followed him. The silence was complete. No one knew what to say. The human had just refused the entire Galactic Council. He had smiled while doing it. and now he was leaving as if nothing important had happened. As the doors closed behind Jiho, Thelvek turned to Vraxis. Why was he smiling? Vraxis did not answer. He was thinking the same thing. That smile bothered him more than any threat or anger would have. It was the smile of someone who knew something. But what could the humans possibly know that would make them smile in the face of certain death? It does not matter, Vraxis finally said. Prepare the fleet. In 24 hours we will teach humanity why no one refuses the council. But as the council members filed out of the chamber, many of them could not stop thinking about that smile. It was not the smile of a fool. It was not the smile of someone who had given up. It was something else entirely, and that worried them more than they wanted to admit. The war room on the council flagship was full of officers. They stood around a massive holographic display showing the 15 systems where humans had their stations. Each officer wore the colors of their homeworld, blues and greens and purples mixed together in the dim light. Commander Thelvek pointed at the display with one clawed finger. We will approach here in standard battle formation. They will see us coming and arrange their ships to meet us. According to tradition, we will exchange formal challenges before engaging. The battle will be over in hours. The other officers nodded. This was how wars had been fought for thousands of years. Every species knew the rules. You announced your arrival. You met at the agreed location. You fought with honor. When one side had clearly lost, they surrendered and the war ended. Clean. Organized. Civilized. What if they don't follow the rules? Asked a young officer with blue skin and 4 arms. Thelvek made a sound like laughter. They are primitives, but they are not fools. Every species follows the rules. It is what separates us from animals. Far away on a human military station, Admiral Deho sat in a different kind of war room. The walls were covered with screens showing thousands of pieces of information. Ship positions, resource levels, supply routes, communications. Everything was tracked, measured, and calculated. A woman with short black hair entered the room. Her name was Dr. Minji, and she studied alien species. She carried a thick file under her arm. Admiral, I have completed the psychological profiles. Deho gestured for her to continue. Minji opened the file and began reading. Most council species evolved as prey animals. They have strong herding instincts. Their wars are about dominance and territory, not survival. They follow strict rules because breaking those rules would mean social chaos. And humans? Deho asked, though he already knew the answer. We evolved as hunters, pack hunters. We understand cooperation, but we also understand violence in a way they don't. When we fight to win, not for honor, not for status, for survival. Deho nodded slowly. So they will expect us to meet them in formation. They will expect formal challenges. They will expect rules. Yes, sir. Then we won't give them any of that. He turned to the other officers in the room. Begin evacuation of all civilian stations. I want every human scientist, merchant, and child out of the contested systems within 12 hours. And our military forces. Asked a young captain named Hayesu. She had sharp eyes and a reputation for aggressive tactics. They go dark, Deho said. No transponders, no communications, no lights. I want every ship invisible. Move to the locations we discussed last week. The asteroid fields and nebula clouds, Hisu said with a small smile. Exactly. Let them come to their designated battle zones. Let them perform their rituals. And when they are confused and off balance, we hit them. Across human space, the orders went out. Research stations began destroying their equipment and data. Everything that could not be carried away was turned to ash. Scientists packed their belongings and boarded transport ships. Children asked their parents why they were leaving. The adults had no good answers to give. Military ships powered down their identification systems and drifted into hiding. Some nestled between asteroids. Others disappeared into clouds of gas and dust. They waited in silence, their weapons ready, their crews tense. In a secret facility deep beneath Earth's surface, another group of humans worked frantically. Commander Tae-young oversaw the launch of what they called the Ghost Fleet. These ships had no markings, no names. They were built in hidden yards and crewed by volunteers who understood they might never come home. How many are ready? Tae-young asked his second officer. 200 ships, sir, all equipped with the new stealth technology. The council won't see us coming. Tae-young looked at the ships through the observation window. They were sleek and dark, like sharks made of metal. Each one carried weapons that the Council had never seen before. Weapons that humanity had kept hidden just in case. Launch them, he said quietly, and may God help us all. Back on the Council flagship, Thelvek received reports that confused him. Human ships were disappearing from scanners. Stations were going dark. Civilian transports were fleeing the contested zones. "They are running," said one of his officers with satisfaction. "They know they cannot win." But Thelvek was not so sure. Something about this felt wrong. He had fought in a dozen ceremonial wars. He had never seen an enemy act like this before. Where were their ships? Why were they hiding? "Perhaps they are simply frightened," suggested another officer. They realized the mistake they made. Thelvek wanted to believe that. But he kept thinking about Ambassador Jiho's smile. That strange, calm smile. The smile of someone who had a secret. He shook his head, trying to clear the doubt. The fleet would arrive at the first system in 6 hours. The humans would be there, following tradition, and this would all be over quickly. He was worrying about nothing. But deep down, in a place he did not want to acknowledge, Thelvek was afraid. Not of the humans themselves, but of what it might mean that they were not where they were supposed to be. In wars, you could only break the rules if you had never agreed to follow them in the first place. And the humans, Thelvek was beginning to suspect, had never agreed to anything at all. The Council fleet arrived in the Tarsus system exactly on schedule. 3,000 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were arranged in traditional battle lines, row after row of massive vessels. The largest ships were at the center, protected by smaller fighters on all sides. Fleet Admiral Korvash stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was from a species that looked like walking trees with bark-like skin and branches instead of arms. His deep voice rumbled through the command center. "Begin the ritual broadcast. Let the humans know we have arrived." The communications officer activated the traditional war hymn. It was a song thousands of years old, sung before every formal battle. The melody echoed across space, announcing the fleet's presence with dignity and honor. Korvash waited. According to tradition, the humans should respond with their own hymn. Then both sides would move to the designated battle zone, a region of empty space chosen specifically for this purpose. But no response came. The scanners showed no human ships anywhere in the system. The designated battle zone was empty. "Where are they?" asked the tactical officer, confusion clear in his voice. "Perhaps they are delayed," Korvash said. "We will proceed to the battle zone and wait." The fleet moved slowly toward the empty coordinates. Ships maintained their perfect formation. Officers checked their weapon systems, preparing for the formal engagement. Some were nervous, but most felt confident. How could 3,000 ships lose to a handful of human vessels? Hidden in an asteroid field 3 million kilometers away, Commander Taeyong watched the Council fleet on his screens. His ship was completely dark, giving off no heat or light. Around him, 200 other ghost ships waited in the same silence. "They have reached the coordinates," reported his tactical officer quietly. Taeyong studied the enemy formation. They were packed together, protecting each other according to their ancient rules. It made them strong in a traditional battle, but it also made them a perfect target. "All ships," he said into his communicator, "weapons free. Target the command vessels. No warnings. No mercy." On the Council flagship, Korvash was beginning to worry. The humans still had not appeared. His officers were talking among themselves, wondering if the humans had fled. Then the first missile struck. It came from nowhere. One moment, space was empty. The next moment, a Council dreadnought exploded in a ball of fire. The ship's engines had been hit with perfect precision. "What was that?" Korvash shouted. "Where did it come from?" Before anyone could answer, 20 more missiles appeared. They seemed to materialize out of empty space, moving impossibly fast. Each one found a target. Command ships erupted in flames. Smaller vessels broke apart. The perfect formation began to collapse. "Return fire," Korvash ordered. "Find them!" "Shoot them." But there was nothing to shoot at. The scanners showed no enemy ships. The attacks were coming from every direction at once. Human vessels would appear just long enough to fire their weapons, then disappear again before the Council forces could respond. Captain Haisu led one group of human ships from behind a nearby moon. Her vessels were small and fast, painted black to blend with space. They darted between the larger Council ships, firing at weak points and engine systems. Before the enemy could turn their heavy guns around, Hiesu's ships were already gone. "Target the sensors," she commanded. "Blind them before you kill them." Her crews obeyed with cold efficiency. They did not broadcast challenges. They did not give warnings. They simply destroyed anything they could reach. On the flagship, Corvash was in shock. This was not how wars were fought. Where was the honor? Where were the rules? The humans were attacking like pirates, striking from hiding and fleeing before anyone could fight back. "Broadcast a surrender request," he ordered desperately. "Tell them we will negotiate." The communications officer tried. He sent the traditional surrender codes on every frequency. But the humans did not respond. They did not accept the surrender. They did not even acknowledge it. They just kept attacking. Another explosion rocked the flagship. The bridge lights flickered. Corvash could smell smoke. Around him, his officers were panicking. Some were injured. Others had abandoned their posts and were trying to reach the escape pods. "This is impossible," Corvash whispered. "What kind of creatures are they?" A final missile pierced the flagship's shields. It struck the main reactor. For a brief moment, Corvash saw a white light brighter than any star. Then he saw nothing at all. When the battle ended 6 hours later, the Council had lost 1,000 ships. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed, not one. The surviving Council forces scattered in all directions, fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. Taeyong watched them go. He felt no satisfaction, no joy, just a deep weariness. This was what his species was good at. This was what they had learned from thousands of years of killing each other. And now they were teaching the lesson to others. He opened a channel to Admiral Deho. "First engagement complete, sir. Enemy forces destroyed or routed. 0 losses on our side." He paused. "They never stood a chance, did they?" Deho's voice came back quiet and sad. "No, Commander. They never did." The emergency council session was chaos. Representatives from 800 species talked over each other, their voices mixing into a confused noise. Some were angry. Many were frightened. All of them wanted answers. Chancellor Vraxis stood at the center trying to maintain order. His mandibles clicked nervously. He had never seen the council like this before. In 10,000 years of recorded history, no one had ever destroyed a council fleet so completely. "How is this possible?" demanded a floating creature made of gas and light. "They are primitives. They joined our society only 15 years ago. Perhaps we were wrong about them," said a voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. An old bent creature shuffled forward. His name was Rixal, and he was the council's oldest historian. Most members ignored him. They thought he spent too much time studying dead civilizations and ancient wars. "Explain yourself, scholar," Vraxis said impatiently. Rixal activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the council floor. Images of Earth, images of humans. But not the humans the council knew. These were humans from their past. "I have studied human history," Rixal said in his crackling voice. "I tried to warn you all, but no one would listen." The first image showed human soldiers in trenches, mud, blood, bodies. "This is from their First World War. 20 million dead in 4 years. The chamber fell silent. 20 million dead? In one war? The image changed. Now it showed cities turned to ash. Their Second World War. 70 million dead in 6 years. They developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. "Impossible," someone whispered. "No species fights wars like that." "Humans do," Rixal said. Or rather, they did. Constantly. Their recorded history spans 10,000 years. In that time, they have fought approximately 15,000 wars. Not skirmishes, not border disputes, wars. He brought up more images, battles, weapons, destruction. While other species evolved past violence, humans perfected it. They studied it. They wrote books about it. They built entire philosophies around the art of war. Vraxis stared at the images. His mind struggled to understand. But they seemed so peaceful when they joined us. They followed our rules. They limited their weapons because they chose to, said another voice. Colonel Borum, the head of Council Intelligence, stepped forward. He looked tired and defeated. "I have new information. Information we should have discovered years ago." He activated his own display. It showed technical specifications, ship designs, weapon systems. The humans had faster than light travel before they made contact with us. They had antimatter weapons. They had artificial intelligence systems capable of controlling entire fleets. Then why did they pretend to be less advanced? Demanded Thelvek. The Red Reptilian commander had survived the battle at Tarsus. He was one of the few. Because they hoped for peace, Borum said simply. They deliberately matched our technology level. They hid their weapons. They followed our rules. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to be part of something better than what they had known. The council chamber was absolutely silent now. Everyone was beginning to understand. We assumed they were weak because they seemed peaceful. Rixal continued. We did not understand that their peace was a choice. A difficult choice. They spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other efficiently. Then they decided to stop. But that does not mean they forgot how. Borum pulled up another file. We intercepted a human military document. It is 15 years old. From the day they joined the council, he read from the document. Strategic Defense Initiative. Scenario 17. In the event of galactic war, humanity must be prepared to fight alone against multiple species simultaneously. All research stations will have dual military purpose. All trade vessels will carry hidden weapons. All human citizens in space will receive combat training. They planned for this, Vraxis said, his voice hollow. From the very beginning. Not planned for, Borum corrected. Prepared for. There is a difference. They hoped they would never need these plans. But they made them anyway. Because hoping for peace does not mean being foolish about it. Thelvek slammed his clawed hand against his seat. Then we have made a terrible mistake. We did not declare war on a primitive species. We removed the chains from a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to kill. Worse, Rixal said quietly. We made them choose between peace and survival. And for humans, survival always comes first. It is written into every part of their culture. Their stories, their songs, their values. They believe in sacrifice. They believe in fighting against impossible odds. They believe that sometimes violence is necessary. Vraxis looked at all the frightened faces around him. He thought about Ambassador Jiho's smile. Now he understood it. It was not confidence. It was not arrogance. It was sadness. The humans had hoped the council would see that smile and realize something was wrong. They had hoped to avoid this. What do we do now? Someone asked. Vraxis had no answer. He had started a war with creatures who understood war better than any species in the galaxy. He had attacked beings who had survived thousands of wars against themselves. He had threatened people who had nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times, and somehow found the wisdom to stop. And worst of all, he had made them stop pretending to be something they were not. The galaxy was about to learn what humans really were, and Vraxis knew with absolute certainty that the lesson would be written in fire and blood. 3 months into the war, the galactic maps told a story that terrified the council. Red markers showed systems under human control. There were too many of them. Far too many. Admiral Deho stood in the human war room looking at the same maps with tired eyes. Victory after victory, but each one cost resources. Cost time, cost lives. The council still had 800 species. Humanity had one. Status report, he said quietly. Captain Hisu stepped forward. She looked different than she had 3 months ago. Harder, older. We have taken control of 23 systems. Enemy casualties are high. Our losses remain minimal. How minimal? Deho asked. Hisu hesitated. 42 ships, 3,000 personnel, 3,000 dead. Deho felt the weight of each number. 3,000 families, 3,000 empty chairs at dinner tables, 3,000 names that would be carved into memorial walls. The council is adapting, Hisu continued. They are learning from their mistakes, fighting more carefully, avoiding direct engagement. Then we adapt faster, Deho said. He turned to the room. Activate the hidden shipyards. It is time to show them what we really built. In dead star systems across human space, massive structures came to life. They had been disguised as asteroid mining operations. Now they revealed their true purpose. Ship construction facilities larger than most council stations. They had been building in secret for 15 years. New ships emerged. These were not the limited vessels humanity had shown the council. These were warships built without restrictions. Faster, stronger, armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Captain Hisu led her expanded fleet into council territory. Her strategy was simple but devastating. She did not attack military targets. She attacked supply lines, fuel depots, repair stations, Food convoys. Without supplies, even the strongest fleet was helpless. "This is not honorable," one of her young officers said, watching as they destroyed a supply convoy. Yesu looked at him with hard eyes. "This is war, real war, not the ceremonial games the council plays. In real war, you fight to win, and the fastest way to win is to make it impossible for the enemy to keep fighting." Meanwhile, the council attempted a ground invasion of a human colony. They sent 50,000 troops to the planet Novus. They expected an easy victory. The planet had only 10,000 human defenders. Sergeant Yuna commanded the defense. She was a small woman with scars on her hands and coldness in her eyes. She had fought in the last war between human nations before Earth unified. She knew how to kill. The council troops landed and immediately faced problems. The planet's atmosphere was slightly toxic to most of them. They needed breathing equipment. But the humans had evolved on Earth, where the air contained poison that killed most alien species. To humans, Novus air was just fine. Yuna's troops used the environment as a weapon. They attacked at night when the alien equipment worked poorly. They hid in places that council species found uncomfortable. They fought in ways that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Within 2 weeks, the council forces retreated. They left 30,000 dead behind. Human losses were less than 1,000. Back on Earth, humanity began a different kind of attack. They broadcast messages directly to individual council species. Not threats, offers. "This is not your war," the broadcasts said. "This is between humanity and those who declared war on us. If you withdraw now, we will not pursue you. We will remember that you showed wisdom." Some species listened. They saw what was happening and quietly pulled their ships back. They stopped sending troops. They told the council they needed to protect their own systems. The council was fracturing. 800 species had declared war, but that number was dropping. 700, 600. Some species began secret peace talks with human diplomats. Vraxis watched his alliance crumble. He called another emergency session. "We cannot let them divide us. If we do not stand together, they will destroy us one by one." But his words rang hollow. Everyone had seen the casualty reports. Everyone knew species that had lost entire fleets. And everyone was asking the same question. Why are we fighting a war that was never ours to begin with? Only the core species remained committed. The Crethians, proud warriors who refused to retreat. The Vex, who had territorial disputes with humanity. A few others who had invested too much to back down now. Thelvek met with his fellow Crethian commanders. "We underestimated them," he said. "But we are warriors too. We can adapt. We can learn to fight like they do." One of his officers shook his head. "Commander, they have been fighting for 10,000 years. We had 3 ceremonial wars in our entire history. We cannot learn in months what they perfected over millennia." Thelvek knew it was true, but he could not admit it. To admit it would be to admit that honor and courage meant nothing against experience and ruthlessness. On Earth, people watched the war reports with mixed feelings. They were winning, but the cost was visible in every news broadcast. Young soldiers who would never come home, ships that would never return. Victory tasted like ashes. Ambassador Jiho gave a speech to the human public. "We did not want this war. We tried to avoid it. But when forced to choose between peace and survival, we chose survival. We will win this war, and then we will do everything in our power to make sure nothing like it ever happens again." His words were broadcast across the galaxy. The council species heard them, and many wondered if the humans were more frightening when they fought, or when they promised peace. 6 months. That was how long the war had lasted. The council had lost nearly half its military strength. 300 species had withdrawn completely. The ones who remained were desperate. In a secret facility far from the council chambers, Thelvek and Vraxis met alone. Between them sat a metal case. Inside the case was a weapon that had been banned for 2,000 years. "Planet killers," Vraxis said quietly. "The council swore never to use them again. They're too terrible." Thelvek's red scales seemed darker in the dim light. "These are terrible times. If we do not stop the humans now, they will rule the galaxy." "Is that not more terrible?" Vraxis looked at the case for a long moment. Then he clicked his mandibles in agreement. "One human colony. We destroy one world, show them we are still dangerous. Maybe then they will negotiate." The missiles launched from a hidden council base. 20 weapons, each capable of cracking a planet's crust and boiling its oceans. They streaked toward the human colony of New Terra, where 5 million civilians lived their lives. On New Terra, alarm screamed. People looked up at the sky with fear. Parents grabbed their children. The elderly said quiet prayers. Everyone knew what was coming. Then the missiles began to explode. Not on the ground, in space. One by one, human defense systems tracked them, targeted them, and destroyed them. The forbidden weapons vanished in harmless bursts of light. Not a single missile reached the planet. Not one. On New Terra, people slowly realized they were safe. Some cried with relief. Others cheered. But the military commanders were silent. They knew what this meant. The Council had tried to use their ultimate weapon, and it had failed completely. Admiral Deho received the report in his command center. He closed his eyes briefly. They used planet killers. They actually tried to kill 5 million civilians. Yes, sir, said his aide. What are your orders? Deho opened his eyes. They were cold now, hard. Activate Operation Prometheus. It is time to end this. Across the galaxy, human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, but not near military targets. They appeared in orbit around 15 major Council worlds, 15 home planets of species that still fought against humanity. The ships did not attack. They simply sat there, weapons armed and ready. Every scan showed that their guns were pointed at cities, population centers, industrial zones. They could destroy these worlds in minutes, but they did not fire. On each of these worlds, billions of civilians looked up at the human ships and understood. They were hostages. Their own government's actions had put them in danger. Then Ambassador Jiho's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. His expression was not angry. It was sad. Deeply, profoundly sad. People of the galaxy, he began. 6 months ago, your council declared war on humanity. They gave us an ultimatum. We refused. Since then, we have fought to defend ourselves. Today, your council tried to destroy one of our civilian worlds. They failed, he paused. Now you need to understand something. We could have ended this war on the first day. We have had the capability all along. But we did not want to be conquerors. We wanted to be partners. The image changed. It showed human technology that no one had seen before. Ships that moved faster than anything in the galaxy. Weapons that could manipulate stars. Artificial intelligence systems that controlled entire fleets. These are the weapons we built before joining your council. Jiho continued. We hid them. We hoped we would never need them. We wanted peace so badly that we pretended to be weaker than we were. Another image appeared. A massive fleet of dark ships. This is our AI fleet. Every ship is autonomous. Every ship has orders. If humanity loses this war, if Earth falls, these ships will activate automatically. They will not stop until every council world is ash. We built a guarantee. If you destroy us, we destroy you. The galaxy watched in horror. The humans had built a weapon that could not be stopped. A weapon that would activate if they lost. There was no way to win anymore. Only ways to lose, but it does not have to be this way, Jiho said. His voice was gentle despite the terrible things he was revealing. We are giving you a choice. Surrender unconditionally. Accept human terms for peace. Or we stop holding back. We stop fighting carefully. We stop trying to minimize casualties. We use every weapon we have. He leaned forward, and the sadness in his eyes was clear. Please, choose peace. We have seen enough death. We have caused enough pain. Let this end now. The broadcast ended. For a moment, the entire galaxy was silent. Then the panic began. Council species contacted their governments. They demanded withdrawal from the war. They protested in their streets. They refused to send more troops. The unified front that Vraxis had built collapsed in hours. Vraxis sat alone in his chambers. He finally understood why Jiho had smiled that first day. It was not the smile of confidence. It was the smile of someone who hoped desperately that the council would see the truth, that the smile would make them think twice. That war could be avoided. The humans had smiled because they were sad. Sad that after seeking peace, they would have to show the galaxy what they really were. Vraxis reached for his communicator. His mandibles trembled as he sent the message he never thought he would send. Humanity, this is Chancellor Vraxis. The Council surrenders. Please let us talk about peace. 1 year after the war ended, the new Council chambers orbited Earth. They were smaller than the old ones. Less grand. But there was something honest about them. Something real. Ambassador Jiho stood at the center, but he held a different title now. Secretary General of the Reformed Galactic Assembly. It was a position he had not wanted. But someone needed to rebuild what had been broken. Around him sat representatives from 500 species. Not 800 anymore. Some species had withdrawn from galactic politics entirely. Others had joined together into regional groups. The old empire was gone. Something new was taking its place. We gather today, Jiho said, not as victors and defeated, but as species who have all learned a terrible lesson. War is not a game. It is not ceremonial. It is destruction and death and grief. We must never forget that. In the audience, Vraxis listened. He no longer held power. His position as chancellor was gone. But he served as a historical advisor now, helping ensure the past's mistakes were not repeated. It was a humble role. He had learned humility the hard way. The old council maintained peace through ignorance, Jiho continued. You ignored conflict because you did not understand it. But peace built on ignorance is fragile. True peace requires strength and wisdom together. The new assembly had made significant changes. Every member species now sent their military officers to Earth for training, not to learn how to kill more efficiently, but to understand the true cost of violence. The human instructors taught them history. They showed them battles from Earth's past. They explained how wars began and how they ended. They shared the scars that humanity carried. Captain Haisu led one such class. She stood before young officers from a dozen species. My people fought thousands of wars, she said. We became very good at killing. But you know what we became even better at? Remembering the dead, mourning them, learning from them. She brought up an image of a memorial wall on Earth, millions of names carved into black stone. Every war teaches a lesson. The question is whether you are willing to learn it. The Krithians, surprisingly, had become humanity's strongest allies. Thelvek himself requested a permanent exchange program. Krithian warriors trained with human soldiers. They learned together. We thought you were like us, Thelvek told Admiral Deho during one meeting. We thought you glorified war. But you do not, do you? Deho shook his head. We understand war. We respect its power. But we do not glory in it. Every war is a failure to find another way. Then teach us, Thelvek said. Teach us to be warriors who hate war. Scholar Rixel published a book about the war. It became required reading across the galaxy. The Warrior Philosophers, he called it. The book explained how humanity's greatest weakness had become their greatest strength. They are dangerous, he wrote, not because they are good at violence, but because they understand violence well enough to control it. That is true strength. In a quiet garden on Earth, Jiho and Vraxis walked together. The former enemies had become something like friends, or perhaps just two beings who understood each other's burdens. I need to ask you something, Vraxis said. That first day when we declared war, you smiled. I have wondered ever since why. Jiho was quiet for a moment. I smiled hoping you would notice, hoping you would wonder why a human facing 800 species would smile. I hoped you would realize something was wrong, that maybe you would stop and think. I smiled hoping to avoid the war entirely. Vraxis clicked his mandibles sadly. We thought it was arrogance. I know, Jiho said. And that is the tragedy. We tried to warn you without threatening you. We tried to give you a chance to back down with dignity. But sometimes, no matter what you do, war comes anyway. A year after the war, a young human diplomat named Hana gave a speech at the memorial ceremony. She represented the generation that would inherit this new galaxy. We did not teach the galaxy how to fight, she said to the assembled crowd. We taught them why fighting should be the last choice. The most dangerous species is not the one most capable of violence. It is the one most capable of controlling that violence, of knowing when to fight and when to stop. Later that day, Jiho and Captain Hisu stood before the memorial wall. New names had been added. Human and alien alike, every being who died in the war was remembered here. Was it worth it? Hisu asked quietly. Jiho did not answer immediately. He touched one of the names on the wall, a young pilot who would never see his daughter grow up. No war is worth it, he finally said. But sometimes you do not get to choose. You only get to choose how you fight and why. We fought to survive, Yisu said. Yes, but we won because we remembered what we were fighting for. Not glory, not conquest, just the chance to live in peace. He looked at her, and now we have that chance. We have to make sure these deaths meant something. Above them, Earth turned slowly in space. Human ships patrolled nearby, but they were peaceful patrols now. Protecting, not attacking. Around the planet, alien vessels moved in harmony. Trading, talking, learning. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's smile had never been one of eagerness for war. It was the sad smile of those who understood war's true cost. The smile of warriors who hoped desperately they would not have to fight. And now, finally, after all the blood and fire, the galaxy understood what that smile meant. It meant that sometimes the strongest choice is choosing not to fight. But when fighting becomes necessary, you fight to win so that you never have to fight again. That was humanity's gift to the stars. Not the art of war, but the wisdom of peace.